And Owl?
Is it supposed to be muted? So it's unmuted. It's unmuted. How's that?
We'll have a test. Lisa, I can hear the sound coming.
Okay, so you probably want to mute that.
Yeah, turn the volume down a little bit.
Just turn your volume down. Okay, we should be fine now. Great. Thank you, Jeff, for letting us know. Hopefully everyone can hear us now. You haven't missed much so far. We're just about to turn to our special order of business. We have 2 public hearings tonight. The first public hearing is on community choice aggregation, CCA local law. I'll now call for a motion to open public hearing. Patrick, thank you. And a second. Rob, thank you. All those in favor of opening the public hearing? And that is unanimous. Thank you. Do we have any members of the public wishing to speak to this public hearing?
Nobody.
There's no one in council chambers. We do not have anyone virtually. So I'll ask for a motion to close public hearing. Rob, thank you. And a second. Phoebe, thank you. All those in favor of closing the public hearing? And that is unanimous. Thank you very much. Our second public hearing tonight is on Drinking Water Source Protection Program, the DWSPS Plan. Call for a motion to open that public hearing. Patrick, thank you. And Rob is a second on opening the public hearing. Are there any members of the public wishing to address the committee on this public hearing?
No members of the public are here.
Seeing none, I'll ask for motion to close. Rob, thank you. And a second, Patrick, thank you. All those in favor of closing the public hearing? And that too is unanimous. Okay, thank you so much. We will now move to item 4 on our agenda. 4A is a presentation on the draft Climate Action Plan and implementation. And I understand Rebecca Evans, Sustainability Planner, is with us this evening. So I will turn it over to Rebecca. There you are. Hi, thank you for being here.
Thank you. I can go ahead and share my screen. And I'm going to run through this fairly quickly because there isn't anything that you haven't seen before. It'll just sort of outline what to expect from the Climate Action Plan. And, you know, the reason that we do this is to formalize a path forward for decarbonization and to reach the goals that are outlined in the Green New Deal. So at the adoption of this plan, it would ultimately commit the city to this path forward. And let's see. Hopefully you all are seeing my screen, I hope.
And if Rebecca didn't mention it, you will be seeing this plan in full next month, but this is an overview because it's quite dense, so it's an overview this month, so you know what you'll be seeing.
It's a sneak peek, so lucky you. So just to run through sort of an outline of what the Climate Action Plan will actually look like, you'll get an executive summary that will be kind of an overarching view of what to expect from the whole document. As Lisa said, it is going to be a pretty massive document. It will be, you know, upwards of probably 20 to 30 pages. So that executive summary will probably come in handy. We'll also look at the strategic framework, greenhouse gas inventory, mitigation strategies and actions, infrastructure strategies, and then the foundational elements and equity considerations. Within that strategic framework, it's typical to try and tie the Climate Action Plan to any municipal mission or comprehensive plan that exists. So we did go ahead and try and make connections to Plan Ithaca. We'll also look at co-benefits of action. So yes, this will obviously positively impact greenhouse gas emissions in the city of Ithaca, but we want to see other benefits to this strategy moving forward, whether they're social or economic or otherwise. You'll have an in-depth look at the greenhouse gas inventory. We'll compare it to 2010 to the 2019 that you guys would have seen. I believe it was last month. And it'll just break it down a little bit further, and you'll have a report that goes along with that. And the mitigation strategies will have, you know, this is sort of a bird's eye view of all of the actions that we'll be taking. So we'll look at energy efficiency, electrification, grid decarbonization, and carbon negative technology. So that diagram on the right you have probably seen before in presentations that Luis has given. The one on the left is just a different way to look at this. So the size of that box correlates with the impact on greenhouse gas emissions. So electrification and energy efficiency having the largest impact at greenhouse gas mitigation. And within each of those buckets, we have the actions that will ultimately be implemented. So clean heating and cooling, again, will have the boxes that correlate with the impact on greenhouse gas emissions. So clean heating and cooling, that's the electrification program that was approved in 2021. Light duty electric vehicles, heat pump hot water heaters. I'm sorry, did somebody say something?
No.
No,
No,
okay.
go ahead.
Heavy duty electric vehicles, induction cooktops, medium duty, and then the smaller stuff. And so CCA is on the agenda for tonight. You can see that in this little box right here. And the reason that that is small compared to the others is because the grid in New York State is relatively clean given our proximity to Niagara Falls and the number of renewables that are available in New York State. Talk a little bit about infrastructure. This is more about decarbonizing the grid and improving resilience and flexibility, particularly as we see the national grid changing. You know, it's a matter of national security, being able to be flexible and kind of diverting energy to where it's needed in the instance of an emergency or a natural disaster or something of the like. And then these ones you will have probably seen before, more of the social elements. So the Green New Deal scorecard, have an in-depth look at that. The Finger Lakes Energy Compact, our strategy for democratic engagement, some more information about the workforce development program and how state and federal policy and different partnerships can help, one, align vision, and two, provide funding for all of these strategies. And then underscoring all of these and really being the foundation of the entire Green New Deal is our equity considerations. So we do have that climate justice community definition that was approved in May. And we'll be operationalizing that by providing a comprehensive Justice 50 policy strategy and proposal that will ultimately be reviewed by council. And as Lisa mentioned, this will ultimately be coming to you all next month. So in November, hope to have a committee vote for circulation, have a public hearing and a vote in December, and then send it on to council for final adoption in January. Of course, understanding that things can happen and dates may change, but this is our goal. And that's everything that I have for you. I'm happy to answer questions.
Thanks very much, Rebecca. And I will ask that we hold questions. Tonight's presentation is very, very helpful and does set us up well for the November Planning Committee meeting when we will see the full document. And at that time, thanks to the presentation you gave tonight as a background, it's in November that we'll have opportunity for discussion and questions, but this is extremely helpful. So thank you. So don't go away, Rebecca. Because our next presentation is on the Sustainability Update Transition Plan. I've been in some of the discussions with you and Director Nicholas, and I'm very pleased that we have this on the agenda tonight as a presentation. As there are questions from members of the public, and I want to express support for the work you are doing as we move through this transition phase. So once again, I'll turn it back to you to present.
Thank you. Lucky me, twice in one night. And I luckily have another PowerPoint for you. So I'm just going to go over what our priorities are for the next 4 months or so. Again, none of this is going to be really different from what you've seen in the past. You know, our commitment remains the same. Our strategy remains the same, provided there aren't any really major hiccups in the road. But I want to start just by reviewing what we've been able to accomplish in the past 18 months. So we've adopted the Ithaca Energy Code Supplement, otherwise known as the Green Building Code, and phase 2 of that will start in 2023. We've also secured the conference center being all electric, which is the first in the country and very, very exciting. I wish that I could take full credit for that, but credit is due to Tom Knipe there. We have gone ahead and done a building stock energy study to see like who the major energy hogs are and where the low-hanging fruit are. We launched the Electrification program, very exciting, again, first in the country. We published our municipal and greenhouse and community greenhouse gas inventories, started a CCA development pipeline, at least for the program, and have started doing the outreach associated with CCA. We're exploring ground-mounted solar and battery storage in Southwest Park, launched a green jobs training pilot. We have defined climate justice communities, created the 24/7 CFV Finger Lakes Energy Compact, and we have created and maintained partnerships with over 200 mission-aligned organizations, not just in the US, but across the world. So that's a lot in 18 months, so congratulations. That has been a really nice success story. And we do have projects underway that we will be continuing. One is the Cca Implementation Plan, which will ultimately be approved by council, and you'll be hearing a little bit more, at least about the local law tonight. As I mentioned in the previous presentation, we should adopt the 8-year climate action plan, which would get us to carbon neutrality by 2030. We will also be launching a Green New Deal website, which will have more information about the electrification program in particular, and then more, in addition to more information about the various projects. I think we're up to like 15 or 16 at this point. But we'll have a developer go ahead and put together something that's nice and interactive for the public. We'll continue to explore and deploy electrification technology in municipal buildings. Go ahead and continue community education and outreach with the help of all of you. And we will continue reporting through the various grants that we have open through the state and federal government. I apologize, I'm getting over a cold. There are some new things that you'll be seeing in the next couple of months. One is a zero emission transportation strategy. So how do we replace the existing fleet vehicles with electric vehicles and then deploy electric vehicle charging across the city? This will be a concept that we'll bring to you all in the next several months, most likely December. Also start working really diligently on the Justice 50 framework and the subsequent implementation plan. That's our equity and justice strategy around the Green New Deal. And continue to research mechanisms to protect renters from the cost of electrification. As I'm sure all of you have heard from various constituents, there is the potential for landlords to raise rent after electrifying a home, and we want to make sure that renters are protected to the best of our ability. We'll also be launching the Green New Deal Scorecard in partnership with the Climate Reality Project chapter of the Finger Lakes, and that should be live in November. That has been a labor of love that will finally be live. We've been working on it for about a year, so that should be very exciting and should have it should provide some transparency and accountability for our office. And then, of course, continue with education materials, particularly around the finance strategy behind electrification, trying to help people really understand how money is moving, where money is coming from, so that we can, again, have another level of transparency and accountability, and people can really understand this program. And then lastly, I just wanted to provide you with a really quick update on the electrification program. CCE continues to do education and outreach and have really been focusing on the South Side neighborhood. They'll be having a block party next Saturday, October 29th, where folks are going to have a meal together and talk about energy efficiency and electrification. And, you know, if they're interested in actually doing a project in their home, then they'll have the ability to start that process there. Block Power continues with their brand building, so that's marketing and communications, as well as attending local events. We are, again, starting to explore what sort of technology and finance strategy makes sense for municipal buildings around electrification, and that will continue. And finally, I got some data from Block Power. About 45, this is just since the launch in July, 45 residents have completed the instant building report, which is basically a portal. You put in a bunch of information about your household, and it spits out kind of a really brief report about, you know, your potential energy savings, potential cost, and any incentives that you may or may not qualify for. And from that instant building report, 16 people have scheduled meetings and 5 have already entered contract negotiations with Block Power. We don't expect any of those projects to actually begin until 2023. And that has been really strategic, particularly around the Inflation Reduction Act, and trying to make sure that residents are getting the best deal that is available. And likely that is not going to happen until 2023. So we've been working really closely with Block Power to ensure, again, that we are getting the best price for the folks of Ithaca. And that's my 4-month plan and update.
Yes, thanks so much, Rebecca. And I will say that the successes to date are impressive, especially to see them listed in your report. And would you please provide to committee members the slides that you shared with us this evening, and that will be the basis for, as you said earlier, as I said earlier, the basis for our discussion at the November Planning Committee meeting. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
I just want to make a comment.
Phoebe?
I just want to say on record, I want to thank Luis, because I know a lot of what we've just seen is because he was so involved. So thank you, Luis, very much for all your input.
Thank you, Phoebe. We next have a report on the unsanctioned encampment working group activity. This is a working group that I appointed a few months ago, and they have already been holding meetings. It is a working group comprised of council members and city staff members. So I'll turn it over to Director Nicholas first.
Thank you, Laura. I'll give an update, and then obviously Cynthia's here, she can add anything. So the committee has a charge, which I will read to you. The working group will one, develop a draft city policy regarding unsanctioned encampments on city-owned property, including a recommended methodology for policy enforcement, given competing demands for limited city resources and a desire not to criminalize homelessness. And 2, by January 2023, evaluate and recommend if any city lands currently used for unsanctioned encampments should be repurposed for other public use or more active management. Following adoption of a city policy regarding unsanctioned encampments on city-owned properties, the working group will recommend an appropriate city role and actions in assisting unsheltered persons experiencing homelessness transition to shelter and stable housing. So that is the charge the group was given. We've met twice, and so far we have developed a questionnaire for department heads and the questionnaire is about, what do they see as the staff impact on existing encampments, on if there were a sanctioned encampment, a reaction to the current, the proposal for a specific sanctioned encampment called Tides. What would be the impact on doing nothing, and if there were to be an increase in unsanctioned encampments and doing nothing, and also asking for information about what are their ideas about alternatives to a sanctioned encampment and potentially prevention. So we just distributed that today, and we got distributed today, and we hope to be getting the responses back next week, and we'll use that to inform the work of the group going forward. We have also looked at several cities, the different policies that other cities have enacted, including Oakland, Denver, Montpelier, Salt Lake City. And so next, and we've looked at also Martin versus Boise, which is a case brought down from the Ninth Circuit that applies to 9 Western states, stating that you cannot cite or ticket people for sleeping outside or outside of shelter when there are no alternatives. So we're looking at the impact of that. And so next we will be reviewing the answers we get from the departments, and in light of the other policies we're looking at, starting to look at drafting our own policy. You have anything to add something? That's a good summary of it.
Thank you, Lisa, and thank you, Cynthia, for serving on this working group as well. And we will look forward, the planning committee and council as a whole, to hear updates going forward from the work of this working group. So thank you very much. We will next turn to the voting items that are before the committee tonight. The first of which is CCA, Community Choice Aggregation Local Law. And Luis is here with us this evening. Phoebe, thank you, Luis. I have thanked you. I appreciate all of your work. Rebecca has done a wonderful job as well, but it is good to see you here this evening to present this local law. So I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you very much, Phoebe. I want to also use this opportunity to say how much of a privilege it was to be able to lead the Ithaca Green New Deal. It is definitely unique. It is something that is turning the country upside down. It's making people think differently, and I appreciate the opportunity given to me to lead this effort. As for the item tonight is community choice aggregation, local law that was approved for circulation a month ago. So I think at this point, I don't have a presentation. I don't have much more to say, given that it was circulated. I'm here really just to answer any questions that this planning committee may have.
Sorry, Luis, I was just asking a clarifying question on the presentation tonight and what we will be voting on. We will be voting on moving this local law on to council at the November 2nd council meeting. We have the local law in the packet. Did you have additional comments, Luis, or are there, I'll turn it over also to questions from committee members.
Yeah, I don't have anything to add, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Discussion, questions? Cynthia?
Thank you. I also want to share my gratitude to Luis. You have done a tremendous amount of work in a very short period of time. You've definitely brought forward a level of energy and transformative action to the city that has been quite impressive and has launched us into new things that are definitely, I think, being held up as a model for cities and states around the US as well as the world. So thank you for that. I'm going to ask a mundane question in terms of next steps. So I understand that this is a local law. It lays a framework of what could be done, but not everything in this local law necessarily has to be done. And once this is passed, it does talk about a CCA administrator. So for the city, what do you see the next steps being immediately after the passing of this local law? I know that the town of Ithaca is looking at joining forces in this effort. Will a CCA administrator be appointed by the city? I presume this might be a city staff person. How is this going to be rolled out in the coming months?
What was determined previously was that the city did not have the resources to be the CCA administrator as it was originally proposed. So I was asked to find a solution involving a third party. So the intention is to identify a third party that could take on that position as lead agency. At this point, we're working with Local Power. That's the consultant who's been helping us first with the local law and now with the implementation plan. They will file as interim CCA administrator before the Public Service Commission. And following approval from the Public Service Commission, what we will need to do is to have an RFP to identify through a competitive process which company could take on this role. The CCA order from the PSC CCA order allows for this lead agency to take from fees on top of the cost of electricity to cover operational costs of the CCA administrator. So there shouldn't be any cost to the city. There is, directly to your question, Cynthia, and I think you brought it up last time, that probably we should think about the city taking on the role of CCA administrator. That is definitely a possibility. It was initially the intent, but many in City Hall, including the city attorney, recommended that we seek a third party because they didn't want to impose extra burden on the staff.
Any follow-up?
Thank you. Cynthia wants to follow up, but I have a follow-up as well, if I may. Do you have an estimate, Luis, on how long it will take to for the PSC to approve the third party being recommended?
Yeah, I think once we have, what the Public Service Commission needs to do is first approve the Cca Implementation Plan, Community Engagement Plan, and Data Protection Plan. All that is submitted together as a single document. It takes about 90 days for the Public Service Commission to issue a ruling. The ruling could be that they accept what we are proposing, or that they are asking for some changes in our proposal. If they are asking for changes, there is a chance that it would be another 90 days. Once they do that, we will have to have a competitive process to select an energy service provider. Once we have selected the energy service provider, then we can identify a CCA administrator. So that would be the order. And once we have identified a CCA administrator, that CCA administrator needs to comply with some specific characteristics that had to be already registered with the Public Service Commission. So the RFP to identify the CCA administrator will include all those elements. So the one that we select would be approved practically immediately by the Public Service Commission.
Thank you. Cynthia, did you have another follow-up?
I did. As you know, because I had raised questions about this in previous conversations, when we brought this forward, I think there was a lot of discussion and review, and the strongest argument for this was the possibility of allowing sort of all of the users within the city to default receive clean energy through the CCA program. And we had talked about that at length. However, the local law that is on the table here allows for other options that have not, I don't think, been fully discussed with regards to distributed energy resources, the share program, loan program, other types of funding and investment programs, and how that would roll out. And I do hope that as we go through this process, the city keeps close reins on the CCA administrator and what aspects are being provided to our customers, and ensuring that there is clear and proper education and understanding of what our clients are submitting to if distributed energy resources become a facet of this program. As you know, in previous meetings, I'm always deeply concerned that instruments and financial investments such as these can be very complex. The average user may not understand either the risk or obligation or the elevator costs that can sometimes be folded into programs like this. So I'm looking to staff to ensure that we pay very close attention to it, because I was very surprised to see it included in the local law. Once we pass it, it is definitely allowed. So we need to make sure that the city is holding the reins before any utilization of that aspect of the law is rolled out.
Yeah, I think the best way of looking at this is the local law includes all the possibilities, is the testing menu, and then the implementation plan will have what the CCA is gonna do and what is acceptable, which has to be approved by the by Common Council. once Common Council is content with what's in the implementation plan, is submitted to the Public Service Commission. So for example, I agree with you, unless all of those elements are properly explained and understood by Common Council and then approved by Common Council, they should not be in the implementation plan. So once again, this is just a wide menu with the intention of covering as much as we could, then design an actual implementation plan that fits the needs of the city and that is affordable, and it basically meets all the needs of the residents. So I hope that when this happens, Common Council gets a full explanation of all the elements in the implementation plan.
Thank you.
Thank you, Luis. And you mentioned affordability. Affordability is mentioned in this. Questions we've discussed in the past having to do with affordability and equity, and we want to make sure that individuals with the least financial means may have full opportunity to take advantage. I see that City Attorney Ari Levine is here with us, and I see that he has a hand up. Ari, did you have a comment to make?
Oh, thank you, Laura. Yes, good evening. Just a brief clarification to offer, which was that there was a mention earlier in this conversation this evening about avoiding the burden on city staff of the city self-administering CCA program. And I just want to clarify that there was a pretty decent array of senior staff who were concerned about not just burden, but frankly, the city's ability to stand up what amounts to administering a utility program that the city has no experience with inside City Hall. And so I think there were a wide array of folks who felt that it would be most effectively delivered if it were delivered by a third-party administrator. So I just wanted to clarify that point.
Thank you, Ari. Any other comments, questions? We will, of course, have opportunity, if this is voted to send on to council, we will have opportunity to discuss it at full council as well. Phoebe, yes.
I had a question of, I've heard for the city to keep close reins on this third party, right? And I wanted to know, how does that keep community informed? How would that keep community informed? Because when we say city, that doesn't always get, to community who will really feel the brunt. So how, I know Luis has worked very closely with many communities. And so has this been a discussion with community members who will really need this information about third party?
Yeah, thank you, Phoebe. We have shared this information with members of the community. However, when we develop an implementation plan, we also need to develop an education and community outreach plan that also has to be approved by Common Council. Once following approval, then the intention is to deploy this plan to educate and inform before rolling out the CCA. So what we need to do is to define what the metrics would be to consider that the community is fully informed and fully aware of what it means to sign up to a CCA, and that's for Common Council to determine. But the intention is precisely that, Phoebe. We need to make sure that every resident in the city that is going to be affected by CCA, if it is approved, that they understand all their options and they understand that they have the right to opt out of the CCA if they wish to do so.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Luis. These are complex programs, and Phoebe, I think you put your finger on it. Communication is going to be really important, and we will be paying close attention to making sure there is a good deal of communication and public outreach. Any other comments, questions? Rob?
Yeah, I'd just like to join my colleagues in thanking Luis for bringing this forward. It is a complex idea, but I have always appreciated that you've helped us see through some big ideas into our community. So I appreciate that. No real questions, just wanted to say thank you.
Thank you, Rob.
Rob, did you have another question?
No, but do we need to move this to?
Yes.
Okay, good, because I
Yes.
haven't done that.
Is there a motion? Patrick, thank you. We jumped right to discussion after the presentation. So sorry. So Patrick has moved. Cynthia, second. Now, are there any further comments or questions or anything further from you, Luis?
No, nothing further, Mayor.
Okay, thank you so much. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor of voting this on to Common Council? Thank you, and that is unanimous. Thank you, Rob. Thank you. Our next agenda item this evening is the bike share MOU. And I understand that Erin Cudahy is here. Hi, Erin. This evening, there is a memo in our packet, and then the most recent revised MOU. A number of people have been working on this very closely. We want a program such as this to be successful. So it is important to have a detailed and up-to-date, and we have the most up-to-date version of the memo of understanding. So I'll turn it over to Erin.
Thank
Sure.
you.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Good to be here with you tonight. I am pleased to speak with you today about the draft bike share MOU. I'm joined by Jennifer Dotson, the Executive Director of the Center for Community Transportation, and Jeff Goodmark, the Director of Micromobility at Center for Community Transportation. I'll call it CCT from now on. CCT has been working for a while with other city staff and others to develop a bike share program to bring bike share back to the city of Ithaca. As you are probably all aware, the city of Ithaca had bike share in the past. It was run by a third party called Lime Bike, and Jeff actually was integral to Lime Bike's program in city of Ithaca. And so he's very familiar with bike share in Ithaca. We're very lucky that he has been rehired to run bike share in Ithaca again. So CCT has developed an entire new bike share program and procured a fleet of bicycles. And they would like to enter into an MOU with the city. There is a draft MOU that is in the packet, but then as the mayor said, the Assistant City Attorney Victor has sent the most updated version of the MOU draft language that was sent this afternoon at 3:20 p.m., I believe, for your reference. So I should also let you know that there is a separate but related funding agreement that is between the city of Ithaca and CCT. In this year's capital program, Lisa, maybe correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding is that in this year's capital program, the planning department was given an amount of money to spend on important projects that I think that the planning department, I don't want to speak for the planning department because I'm in engineering, but my understanding is the planning department had a list of all great important projects, and that the planning department was allotted a sum of $150,000 to spend on 3 different projects. And one of them that was selected to spend $50,000 on was supporting the bike share program in their procurement of bicycles in the amount of $50,000. It's my understanding that that funding agreement would be contingent on a MOU between the city and CCT to be signed, because obviously if there is no agreement with the city, then the city will not be having bike share nor providing funding for said bike share bicycles. So I know this was a lot of information to spew at you all, but I have, as I said, Jeff and Jennifer on the line as well. If you have any questions or comments about the MOU, about bike share in general, or about the funding agreement.
Thank you, Erin. Thanks very much. And it is very helpful to have other individuals here who can answer questions. Is there a motion before we get into presentation and, from others and discussion? Would someone like to move this bike share MOU? Rob, thank you. Is there a second? Cynthia, thank you. Then I'll open it up for discussion and additional information from any others who are joining you this evening, Erin. So let's turn it first to the others who have joined you this evening. I see Jeff, I see Jennifer. Either of you have additional information to provide?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I would like to just add some operational overview points to our program here. As Erin mentioned, I did run the Lime program 2 years ago. And in general, the industry has changed a lot, as has the world in the last 2 years. And we have looked back at all the data and all the information that we collected during the tenure of Lime in the city. And we have learned a lot, and we plan on being able to offer a much tighter and much nicer program in general. And that will begin with having open and clear lines of communication between, our constituents and the people here at this meeting. It's come to our attention that there was a lot of, some issues that got reported that never actually got reported to any of the operations team a couple of years ago. And, it's really hard to take care of business and to correct injustices when we don't even know that they have happened. And so in addition to the MOU that we obviously are looking to get through Common Council, we also just want to make it known that we're looking forward to working with the city from this standpoint with sustainability, environmental, and equity goals that can really benefit the city, as well as really looking forward to working closely with everybody. So if things need to be changed or fixed or corrected, that we're here to listen to that and then to respond accordingly.
Thank you, Jeff. Jennifer, did you have any comment?
Just the brief comment that to echo what Jeff has presented, and also to say that we really appreciate working with the city attorney's office. We worked with Victor directly, and although we haven't sent this MOU, the final version of it from 3 p.m. today, over to our CCT board, which is an important step, we've worked through a number of issues, and I'm feeling much more positive about really putting into words what our shared goals are. Thanks.
But thank you, Jennifer, likewise. Yeah.
We had a couple of hiccups along the way, and I think we're working through them. So thanks.
It's very good that we've had open communication and working collaboratively on a program that we all value.
Great. And I'm available to answer any specific questions related to either the MOU and or just anything operationally about the program, if anyone has any of those.
I have 2 questions, if I may. On it's page 3. the point of contact individual. Under operations and maintenance, will the point of contact be Jeff?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, thank you.
The only thing I would add to that is similarly to our car share operation where we have 24/7 phone coverage, if Jeff is unavailable for whatever reason, it's not that no one will answer the phone, just so you know. Of course, Jeff is the director of bike share, but yeah.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from colleagues? Cynthia, and then Patrick?
Thank you. Is that Jennifer Dopper?
Yeah.
Oh, I haven't seen you in so long. Hi, Jennifer. So yeah, I am very intrigued by this, and it would be good to know that it's a local organization that is taking care of the Lime bikes, and that it's embedded and reflective of our intimate needs. So am I to understand that the city, through a capital project, will be funding this as a one-time fund of $50,000, and then it becomes property of, the bikes become property of CCT? Is that how this is working? And then my question, second question is, are there expected to be ongoing obligations by the city to continue to fund bicycles as they are damaged, need repairs, end up in the creek, and so on? What is the ongoing obligation of the city?
The bikes will be owned locally, and by the way, these, I believe, are drop bikes. They're not Lime bikes, so it's a different company. They will be owned by CCT. CCT will have the responsibility for maintaining, repairing, retrieving bikes, and that is all built into the MOU. Jeff or Jennifer, did you have other information?
That's correct. The $50,000 is an investment at an important moment, but that doesn't come along with the requirement to help us repair, retrieve, whatever.
So
The city has no further financial obligation.
correct.
Right, that was my
Correct.
first question.
Yes. The investment of the $50,000 has assisted CCT in the purchase of, I believe it's 100 drop bikes at present. Patrick and then Rob.
Sure, and thank you guys for coming. I obviously have an operational question, and then I have a money question first. My first being, as far as I understand, that Cornell as an organization does not want the bikes on their property at this time. And I know that there's works with Campus Planning Committee, which I sit on, but we have not been presented with anything. So my first question is, I know we are saying you can put these on city land, but how do you plan for the people who are going to take these bikes and take them off city land? Because a large part of the city is Cornell property. So, as far as I understand in my conversations with University Relations with Campus Planning Committee, they don't want that there. So operationally, how does that intend to work?
The way that you have framed that information is a little bit different than the information that we have received. And I could be incorrect, but while we don't have a formal agreement with Cornell at this time, as was the case with Lime, while we cannot, as a company, bring bikes to campus, they have allowed for the contingency of students using bikes to come on and off campus as their mode of transportation. In terms of retrieving the bikes, those can be based on GPS tracks that we can find. Bikes left on campus can easily be collected, and certainly anything that comes in via our helpline or email as a request gets immediate attention and will be immediately dispatched and removed.
Excellent, thank you. And so it's a little similar to Cynthia's question. I understand that the city does not have any obligation to provide any further funding, But at least from what I understand, and my colleagues at my other job within the student assembly, is that it is against their bylaws and their constitution to provide the $50,000 that you asked them for. And so what I have questions about is, at least the email that I was forwarded by them, have said that you guys intend to run a deficit for the first 6 months, and you had said in that email that you were about, let's see, what was the link here, City of Ithaca and the Cornell Student Assembly are all about to come through with funding that gets us started. I know that $50,000 isn't coming from somewhere, and our $50,000 hasn't been approved yet either, and that was linked asking for folks to donate. So my question is, I understand that the city does not have an obligation to ask further, but are you going to come to us in the next year or two and saying, well, these other partners didn't come through and we like more money as well?
Complicated question. At this time, we anticipate that we have funding looking forward. We do have some funding that hasn't been announced yet that we know is coming our way, which will help build our fleet out and help us run operations. And we're in the process of raising money in a number of other ways, including looking for a title sponsor who will take on a large portion of our yearly operating expenses.
Sure, so I understand fully you can't disclose of the donors that stuff hasn't lined up yet, but I guess my, maybe rephrase my question a little more. Do you expect to ask the city again for more money?
I would phrase it to say that, no, we don't have plans at this moment to come back to the city for more money. We would expect that the city, along with other local players, would be a partner in supporting our activities to fund this. So it could be possible that there could be a federal grant program that we might look for the city's partnership with. It's not that we're not going to be talking about money, but are we looking for money from the city budget? I don't think at this point. Are we going to rule that out and promise that we will never do that? I don't think it's feasible for us to do that appropriate, but no, there's not current plans to do that. Is that a helpful answer?
It is, thank you, I appreciate that.
And I'll just add to the question about parking bikes on campus. I was not aware of the particular Cornell nuance, but in general, right near the end of paragraph 4, I guess it is, just before paragraph 5 in the draft MOU, it refers to parking bikes, a prohibition on parking bikes outside the city right-of-way, except that bikes may be parked outside the right-of-way during business hours at locations that are held open to the general public and that provide adequate facilities for locating bikes, such as grocery stores or retail locations. So that's the sort of manner in which that issue is generally addressed in the MOU currently.
Thank you for that clarification. That also, the intention there is to allow riders to go to stores, to go to class, to go to all the places that they would want to be using these vehicles. The vehicles in our fleet will self-report if they haven't been moved in 24 hours. So the first thing that we'll see every morning is any vehicle that hasn't been moved in a day, and that becomes the top of our priorities to relocate those vehicles.
Thank you.
I will also say that we do, on the CCT board, we work pretty closely with Reed Hugerick. He's one of the members of our CCT board, so with Cornell Transportation. So we have had an ongoing conversation on an operational way with Cornell. And I can't report on any progression on that, but I can tell you that we're in constant communication there.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer and Jeff. I have Rob, Phoebe, and Cynthia.
Thank you, and thanks to everyone. This is terrific to hear. I do have a related question about the size of the fleet. So the initial fleet sounds like it's going to be defined by the contribution from the city and maybe others, and it sounded like the city's contribution will bring in about 100 bikes. Did I hear that right?
Our fleet is currently 100 bikes already. That's what we've purchased through other means, through other funds that we have received. We will be obviously waiting for the MOU to be approved and then the funding agreement to go with that, which will be great. That is definitely money that we could use right away. The 100 vehicles is not the total fleet size for the size of our city. It's just our starting point. And that number came out of conversations with our vendor, who was specifically offering us a very good basically in warehouse, in stock deal on vehicles, which ended up saving our program more than $100,000 if we could act quickly. So it was worth our efforts to make that happen.
Excellent, Jeff. That's really helpful. Yeah. So related question to that then, and I'm just catching up on some of the edits to the MOU. So I'm sorry if it's in there and I missed it, but how will we set that size? What are the metrics that we use to help with that? And will we, I think I remember from in the past that, bikes do go off go out of circulation in part because they just have a life, right? And at the end of that life, they need to be replaced. So how will we know that we're getting the right replacements along the way to ensure that we've, this investment we've made continues?
Thank you. That's a great question. The dockless fleet, the beauty of this model is that it's responsive, and we can look at every single day how many users we have in a day, and we can adjust our fleet size based on that. Industry standard is like 1 to 1.25 rides per vehicle per day is considered excellent. So 100 bikes yielding 200 rides a day would be fantastic. That would be 2 rides per vehicle per day, obviously. If we can have results like that, that will definitely want us to raise our fleet size. Once you get over about 2 rides per vehicle per day, you're underserving the need is higher than what you have. And so we plan on, we looked at all the data that we collected during Lyme, which is all available. I'm sure all of you have seen it ad nauseum, but it's there. And our best days had 800 individual riders. And that was with a fleet of around 350, 375 vehicles. So while we probably won't get to that number this year, we do plan on being north of 200, 250 when we get to the springtime and the weather starts to get nice and we're ready to run our program at more of a full speed.
Okay, great, thanks. And just one final question. So it sounds like the brand of bike is going to come from one consistent source. So will all the fleet look the same, or will there be any local branding on it? I'm just curious about what that will look like aesthetically.
Yeah, thank you. That's a great question. So we have a blank canvas. When we launch if things go as they're planned and the Common Council approves our MOU in early November, the first 100 bikes that will be launched under the title of Ithaca Bike Share. Pretty generic, almost no branding at all. A couple of little spots on the bike will just say Ithaca Bike Share. But our goal is to have a partner who will take on the title role of this program. With their contribution in return, we would brand all of these vehicles the name of that business or that organization, and potentially choose a different color or anything like aesthetically from an advertising standpoint that makes sense. If you look around the country at all of the successful bike share and scooter share programs, you'll notice almost all of them have a name of either a local healthcare organization, or the most famous one is probably Citibank, who has Citi Bike in Manhattan and New York City, and a corporate partner to help make these programs work from a not-for-profit standpoint is a very key element. And it is something that we're working on, but we have not yet finalized.
Great, thanks. Maybe they could be red and white.
Maybe.
Thank you. Phoebe next.
Oh, okay, so I think it was cleared up my question, because at first I thought it said that the city had already bought 100 of these bikes. No, y'all have, right?
Right.
Okay. Okay, and you said, you didn't say where you got the monies from, but that's okay. My concern, and I've been a part of this, and I've been hearing about this for a very long time. How did you get input, or did you get input from communities that I don't know if bikes is what they need in their community, right? So I'm just thinking, in Ithaca, our winters are longer than our warm days, right? And just thinking of families who may have emergencies at night, maybe taking their children to the hospital and different things like that, and I don't find bikes as a way of transportation for them, or other emergencies, right? So as you can tell, I'm not excited about this whole getting bikes when I think communities can use other avenues of helping them to get around, right? And but I know that this is something that the larger community wants, so it's gonna happen. But I wanna know, how are you putting in place to make sure that those communities that, I don't know if a bike is what they need to get to where they need to go, is official, is gonna work.
Yeah, thank you very much again.
Phoebe, hey Jeff, can I grab this
Please.
one?
Yep.
Because I think it works. We can't announce what the other funding is, although Laura knows as well what it is. But I can talk a little bit about the process of how we've sought some of this funding. Incredibly collaborative. Sorry, I can only hear about 75% of what you guys are saying. So what I will say is, of course, bikes are not it. We have been very pleased to be able to work closely with not only Go Ithaca, Jane Brady, who runs that program, has been great. We have Ithaca Car Share staff member, JaVale Haltom, who's been acting as a liaison and working directly with people on basically fulfilling their needs. That's not bike share funding, that's more flexible funding that allows, really, what's basically the conversation is, what's your transportation issue and how can we help support that? Because it's really unique, as we know. So that collaboration has been key in this other large, as yet unnamed funding source. And I will also say that one of the collaborations we've been very happy to have with that has been working directly with Kayla, particularly over at Southside, on similar issues. How do we actually target benefits, whether that be new services like bike share, or whether it be funding for existing services that are out of the reach of individuals, especially when people are pushed out of the more walkable areas and end up being honestly stuck outside the city. So there's no one answer, and bike share is only one additional tool, and there's quite a bit of work that our organization CCT is doing to address those things, and of course in collaboration with TCAT, of course, even in the straits that they're in at the moment. So thank you so much for asking that question, Phoebe.
Jeff, did you have a response to that particular question?
I did. I just wanted to piggyback on that notion, which is that the whole idea of a transportation system within a city, and why we use the term micromobility, is that the point of offering small vehicles for single people to have trips is not the overall solution to any problem. But what it does is it reduces the people that rely upon cars as their main way of transportation. So the more different versions of transportation you can offer, the more chance you have of people choosing these instead of the car-centric and way that they are brought up or taught that this is the only thing that you can use to get around. And so right now we're doing bikes. This industry is changing all the time. I was just at a conference in San Francisco, the Micromobility Conference, and I drove many single-person tiny electric cars that are all coming out there that are in the next few years. These things are going to be available. And the idea is to offer as many different opportunities for people to make choices as we can.
Thank you, but I'm not talking about, I'm not talking about cars and single cars. I'm talking about other ways that communities can get around. So no, I just want to know how the creativity in making sure that communities that has been pushed out, who won't be anyway, just how do we be more creative in thinking of that community of also, finding ways around, because bikes are not gonna help a person who has 3-4 children anyway, just creative. Thank you.
Thanks, Phoebe. And that does, your question does also touch upon the need for TCAT services, especially in areas that may have been underserved in the past. Yeah. Before turning to Cynthia, Erin, did you have a comment on this particular question?
Yes, quickly, thank you. I just wanted to respond a little bit to Phoebe's comment and say that the city, me, Eric, Tim Logue, and others are definitely talking to all different transportation providers in the city about how we can give people more choices with their transportation. CCT is probably the best of them all right now because they have car share. They're working on electric car share. They will have this bike share with electric bikes that expands. It will make it easier for more people to ride bikes because, as you're well aware, the city's so hilly and it's hard to ride bikes in a lot of the city, but with an electric bike, it's easier. But getting away from bikes is also a lot of work that TCAT is doing with, they would like to purchase more small buses. They would like to run a lot more on-demand service and partner with community partners to provide on-demand service, like Uber style on-demand, but much cheaper than Uber. So I think that we have a lot of ideas that we're working on. And the focus for all of these is definitely to help people who live in areas where they don't have enough transportation options. We're definitely concerned about that and working on that.
Thanks, Erin. Cynthia, did you have a question?
I did, thank you. I'll start with the very granular and then ask a larger question. So you had mentioned that, yes, Ithaca is hilly, and so can you speak to the ability of these bikes to get up Old West Hill or Buffalo Street, for example, and also how fast do these bikes go? I know that we spent some time in the last iteration of this dealing with people riding bicycles on sidewalks and so on. But can you just talk about the strength and mechanics of the bikes themselves? And then I have another question after that.
Sure. Simply, these are what are considered class 1 pedal assist e-bikes. The only way to operate them is by pedaling. They have no throttles. They are limited to 14 to 16 miles per hour, which is actually in some ways slower than many people can ride on a regular, 12-speed bike or whatever. The way that it works is with a torque sensor. So you start pedaling, and the more resistance there is, the more the motor adds assistance. So on somewhere where you're going up a hill, where you'd be pushing much harder on the pedals, the motor is going to kick in and try to do more of that, give you more of that effort to try to make that trip possible. These bikes are not going to be the solution for everyone to ride up Buffalo Street. We do have some very extreme hills in this town, and even the best, most expensive e-bikes out there are going to struggle in some of those places. So again, this doesn't solve every transportation problem, or it doesn't allow people to bike everywhere, but it will offer you an option, an affordable option to get across town really quickly.
Thank you. So you actually touched on my second question. I am very much interested in what the pricing will be that hasn't been discussed or outlined in any way. And also what programs will be in place to make sure that people who don't have the economic means will still have accessibility to this resource. What systems, I know again, we did do a dry run with this through Line Bike. So could you talk a little bit about those programs so that we can ensure that these are accessible to everyone?
I sure can. We have multiple different options to try to figure out the best way to get everyone access to our program. The most basic pay-as-you-go model will be very similar to the price of Lime when Lime started, which was $1 to unlock the bike and then 15 cents per minute. There's no commitment, and as soon as you're done with your trip and you lock your bike, then you pay for your trip. That's basically the way that most bike share services in other cities work. We additionally will have a day pass for people who have a lot of errands or something to run, or visitors who come to Ithaca for the weekend and want to use a bike for a whole day. That's in the $20 price range. And that actually works out to an unlimited amount of trips that give you 4 hours total of riding. And then we also will have a monthly membership, which is a little bit cheaper still. That gives you an hour of riding every single day. And that's $40 a month. And then we have an annual membership, which is $150 a year, which actually works out to 40 cents a day. And that also includes multiple hours of riding in each day. In addition to all of those, we also have our Easy Access program. And I think Jennifer wants to talk about that.
Well, you could probably talk about it at this point. The really great thing about the Easy Access program is not only that it's eligible to those with limited income, but it's sort of a single point of entry for multiple transportation modes. That has been housed at CCT. We are transferring it over to Go Ithaca, partly because they have so many other options to offer people, because transportation is not one size fits all. That will look a lot more like a free or nearly free access. I don't know what exactly the dollar amount is going to be, but it's going to be not a barrier. And that'll really get people in. Another thing, actually, just to the other question about technological access, what that program has been able to do in the past is, if having a cell phone or having data on your cell phone is really your barrier to accessing a number of other services, they've been actually just able to pay for your cell phone for a few months so that you can actually access things, which is so much more freedom, really. So that's an example of the creativity that we're able to use to actually get people moving around or accessing what they need to access. So I can't give you a price on that one, but it's going to be free or extremely cheap for those income eligible folks.
Thank you. Thank you. I have two questions in the Exhibit A chart. You touched upon this a little bit, but I wanted to ask the question. It states minimum performance standard, bicycles in service, deploy and maintain a minimum of 100 bikes in service each calendar month. And Jeff, I thought I heard you say that there would be an expectation of a maximum of 200 to 250 bikes at any given time. Is that accurate?
Yes, that's accurate, in terms of the maximum amount. And, the number that we put here in Exhibit A is basically because we're going to essentially put out all the bikes that we have to start. But the beauty of the system is that we can, through feedback and through real-time data, make adjustments to the active number of vehicles so as to not have bikes that are going more than a day or 2 days without being ridden, while still being able to provide transportation to those who want it.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. And then further in that same section, as bikes will be phased into deployment over a 6-week period from program launch. What date does that refer to, program launch?
So we don't really have a hard date for that. If you want to think about the day after we have an agreement with our MOU as our day of program launch, our real plan, in the real world, is to sort of soft launch this program here in the winter. We know there's going to be a lot less usage in November, December, January, February than we will have after that. And so it's a good opportunity to have some bikes out, to get some people used to the program, for CCT to use those assets to help us continue to raise money, and to get people interested in our program. And then we plan on going more full scale in the spring, and that will be, the first nice day we'll put out a few more bikes and a little bit more after that, and kind of phase them into as we get into the end of, April and prime riding season.
Okay, thank you. That's helpful. Any other questions from committee members? All right, thank you. We have this moved and seconded.
And Laura,
the
the version that you're voting on is the version that was circulated this afternoon. Is that true?
Correct, yes.
Thank you very
The
much.
version that was sent to the committee at 3:20 p.m. this
Exactly.
afternoon. The
Thank you.
deadline version. Okay. So all those in favor of moving this on to council? Thank you, and that is unanimous. Thanks, Aaron, Jeff, and Jennifer. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Moving on in our agenda, we next have the Drinking Water Source Protection Program. There was the public hearing at the outset of our committee meeting tonight. We now have the actual document and resolution voting to move this on to council. Is there a motion on this, Cynthia? Thank you. And second, Phoebe, thank you. And let's open this up for discussion. There is a cover memo from Roxy Johnston that refers to this evening's public hearing. I understand that in an earlier agenda, the memo had a link that may not have been working successfully, but that has been addressed. So the link that is in the most current amended PEDC agenda has a link that does work. This item has been discussed at earlier committee meetings. Tonight, what we will be voting on, obviously, is to send this plan on to council. There is a resolution, a proposed resolution. Don't want to read the entire resolution. There's one committee member who has an obligation later this evening, a commitment later this evening. So is there any question, discussion on this item? And Roxy is here to answer any questions anyone may have. Questions?
Could I just add, there is an error in the resolution in the second whereas. It says 52 square acres and it should say miles.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, I don't think we have square acres. Thank you, Roxy. Maybe I should read the entire resolution. No, I'll leave it as written. But the results are resolved that the common council hereby adopts the City of Ithaca Drinking Water Source Protection Plan dated September 2022. Be it further resolved that this City of Ithaca Drinking Water Source Protection Plan will serve as a guide for future decisions made regarding protection and management action of the City of Ithaca's drinking water source, 6 Mile Creek. And be it further resolved that City of Ithaca Drinking Water Plant staff, as part of a broader project management team, perform regular reviews and updates of the City of Ithaca Drinking Water Source Protection Plan every 5 years. And I'll move this as written. Cynthia?
I'll second that.
It was moved and seconded.
Yeah, okay.
Okay,
Yeah, so moved as amended.
moved as amended. Thank you. And is that friendly to the seconder? Thank you. Okay. You ready to vote on this? Voting this on to council? All right, all in favor? And that too is unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thanks, Roxy, for being here.
Thank you.
You're
and for
welcome.
your
Thank
work on
you.
this plan and for catching that one correction.
Yeah, thank
So
you very much.
We have no minutes. They will be provided at the next meeting. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to
Patrick, is there a second? Phoebe, all in favor of adjournment? Unanimous. Okay, thank you so much.
Happy birthday, Mayor.
Oh,
Thank you.
I keep getting myself all amped up to be here. I bought my chicken. I got my chicken now and everything.
To save it for tomorrow.
Yeah.
Let
us know.
Jorge had onion rings at one of the meetings. and I had not eaten. And he was sitting next to me. I'm like, get that away. I'm hungry. And then at the meeting that we went, are we still being
I think the
recorded?
live stream's still on.
Okay.
I mean, it's-
At the